You cannot wash your car, you cannot water your garden.
People had police come to their doors on suspicion of watering their gardens. Can you imagine? With our current global trends, the probability of keeping global warming below 2 degrees Celsius by 2100 is just 5%. Now, for those of you thinking, what mate, 2 degrees ain't nothing. Let me put that into perspective for you. The human body sits at about 37 degrees Celsius. And if your body temperature rises by 0.5 degrees, that is classified as a fever. At 2 degrees of warming, you have a heavy fever. So that's about 39 degrees Celsius. This is when you're in bed, you can't go to work, and your whole body feels aches and pains. Now, the trajectory of warming our planet is heading down right now is about 5 degrees of warming. If your body temperature rose by 5 degrees, we're talking side effects like coma, brain damage, and death. This is what CO2 emissions do to our planet. Well, the planet's going to be okay in the end, but everything that lives on it won't be. That includes you and your family, as well as your future children and your future grandkids, which are going to inherit the planet which we live on. Now, you may be thinking, 2100 is way off. Well, 2100 is only 8 years off. And if you think the Earth's going to wait till December 31st, 2099, 11:59 p.m., you are greatly mistaken. We're going to feel the negative effects of climate change year on year, decade by decade, as it progressively reaches this figure of 5 degrees. And that means year on year upon year, you will feel the negative effects of climate change, and your quality of life will start to diminish along with the health of our planet. Every single degree represents catastrophic changes. And last year in 2020, we already reached a 1.3 degrees Celsius average. There's a lag time of about 30 years before we start to see that heating affect us. So the heating that we see today are from carbon emissions we emitted 30 years ago. And our carbon emissions have only risen drastically since. For this video, I'm going to look at a more conservative estimate of about 3 degrees of warming, just because right now we can still make changes to avert 5 degrees of warming, but stopping 2 degrees of warming seems almost impossible. So let's just look at 3 degrees. We will see more hurricanes, stronger hurricanes, and slower hurricanes, which cause more damage as they hover around cities and wreak havoc. Billions of people around the globe in places like Vancouver, Kazakhstan, Santiago, and South Asia will start to experience water scarcity as their main source of water, glaciers, begin to melt. As their only source of fresh water starts to decrease, there will be an increase in the likelihood of stuff like conflict breaking out, as well as disease as people fight for resources in order to survive. Many will have to abandon their homes and seek refuge in different countries. There will also be effects that we cannot anticipate. For example, the other day in India, a glacier broke off from a mountain and it ran into a dam, causing it to burst, flooding a nearby city, resulting in 9 deaths and over 140 people missing. Like, we have to ask ourselves, is this really the future we are inviting into this world and into our lives? Sea levels would have risen several meters by then, contaminating freshwater storages, which almost every country you can name rely on these, making the water undrinkable as the salt contaminates these sources. South Africa is in water scarcity right now, today, and in some parts cannot use water for anything besides drinking. You can't use to shower, none of that. There's even a video of this guy getting chased by police because he tried to wash his car because he had a car wash, it was his only source of income.
You cannot wash your car, you cannot water your garden.
People had police come to their doors on suspicion of watering their gardens. Can you imagine? I'll leave a link to that video in the description. Many coastal cities like London, Tokyo, Shanghai, New York will be completely underwater by then. Millions will be forced to say bye-bye to all their possessions and all their hard work as they seek refuge in new countries. Places like Africa, South America, and Australia will be almost completely desert by then. And it's highly likely that basically all of Africa will be a desert by then, and it will be uninhabitable, as you can't grow food and crops in the scorching desert. Almost every continent on Earth will be home to deserts, except maybe Antarctica, which would have melted a bit. Heat wave will be a much more common occurrence. In 2003, we had a heat wave in Europe. This is Europe, this is not no random continent that you don't really care about because it has a low GDP. This is Europe, which 70,000 people died. You've had many heat waves since then in Europe. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but another heat wave is definitely on the horizon soon. We're obviously going to see more floods as we see more storms and the sea level rise. Goodbye homes, it's that same old stuff. Homes on the water, all people's possessions that they've worked all their lives for, gone in an instant. Nothing you can do about it. We're not even considering the global tipping points which we are likely to cross in the near future, which will set off a cascade effect. A cascade effect setting off more mechanisms that heat up the planet to even higher temperatures, and that we can do nothing about once they are set off. One being the albedo effect. The albedo effect is the reason why if you wear a black shirt in summer, you heat up way more than if you wear a white shirt in the same temperature, because white reflects more infrared radiation back out, so you don't heat up as much. As global temperature rises, sea ice and land ice, which reflects infrared radiation back into space, starts to melt. This exposes more dark blue ocean, which is better at absorbing infrared radiation, causing the Earth to heat up even more. This heating then causes more sea and land ice to melt, and then obviously the cycle continues. There are 14 of these in total that scientists know about. If we set off one of these, even if we stop releasing CO2 into the atmosphere, it might not even change anything, because that one feedback effect will set off another one as the Earth heats, and it can set up another one, and you can just see where this goes. It goes nowhere but destruction. I'll most likely do a video on these different tipping points, so subscribe, stay tuned. And to be honest, I could go on and on and on about what would happen in 2100, but at the end of the day, we're in 2021. What matters the most is what we do now. This is harming the fate of our whole civilization, our whole planet, and it's gonna affect you. One day you won't be able to turn up lying now from it. You already saw this video, so you have no excuse. So like, subscribe, and goodbye, because I love you.